process needs to be an aid to enable task completion. I mean, and if the process is too complex, so much that it compromises timelines and affects other key deliverables,
Hmm.
it's time to reconsider the process itself. There's something messed up with the process.
We've really gone into the communication and things of that nature. But I want to sort of go back to where you talked about your math background and talk about some of the core pieces, because I know underlying all of this is there's a lot of communications to sort of talk, but underlying all this is fundamentally a quantitative mindset. And you are handling all these cross-functional teams where they're doing things you haven't done yourself per se, or things you know very well. And then you have to sort of bridge that gap and say, how do I measure the productivity of these teams individually, and how they relate to each other? And there's an information flow mechanism there. So could you talk about a little bit about that? So how do you assess these teams, these cross-functional teams essentially, and how do you leverage measurement to make that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are good questions, Sahita. So I've a couple of years ago, I was a cross-functional leader, and apparently my job was to bring in all the teams together. So I had infrastructure teams, I had application teams, I had security teams, and yeah, boom, I would be the team who would ensure that all of them follow standard process, all of them are compliant, and are they achieving as per the service level agreements? Are they excelling? So that was my core role. And again, it's very easy. This is a common thing you must have observed already. I on purpose do not like to enforce on somebody because I don't believe you get the result that you would like to. So before I get into actually, so if people have to, and I don't say I want, it's not like it's we all work together, we are all in this together. Get them to the room and ask them, okay, this is what is contractually obliged, and we apparently, what do you say? Do you think this is achievable? If not, why? Is it because of the tool? And when you look at them and speak to them, now you cannot do this. Of course, now I'm not speaking to the people who do the job. I'm speaking to leaders. So I'm speaking to a director of say infrastructure, director of applications. Of course, I expect them to get connected to their teams and bring it to me because I'm now communicating to the customer at a client level, or I'm doing a different role right now. So they need to come back with me and tell me why something works or why something doesn't work. If not, they need to propose something, but you just can't go empty handed. I cannot go to the client saying, you know what, this is not possible because person X just doesn't like. I mean, that doesn't work, right? I mean, is it a tool issue? Give me the specifics, give me an alternative, and then we'll go and I'll speak to them and get the middle ground done. So, number one, now you've seen how my roles have transitioned. I speak to the leads of teams. I try to get a buy-in, and then I go and articulate, and then that's where my experience and process has really helped me. And I just want to also let the audience know that I am an ITIL expert and focused more on IT service management. So
Hmm.
so so what's very important um, is laying and emphasizing process. So what is your as is process? Why do you do stuff? Show me the way you do stuff. Where are the overlaps happening between the customer or between teams? Why is it difficult, not so difficult? So laying it out on a piece of paper, showing things pictorially so that people can understand rather than just having it on the head or on words definitely helps. And you already covered this, but I cannot emphasize more. There should be metrics and measurement in any relationship. The software aspect is one, but if you don't have anything on paper to show, you look foolish. So you have to at least baseline. You at least show them, okay, this is what I've done, and this is what I am right now, and this is what I expect to achieve. However, for me to achieve this, I may need your support, and that's how you build a workable, agreeable conversation than just saying, you know what, this is what you are supposed to do. So, communicating process and metrics is something which is very important. And then lastly, what I have found myself being chosen for most often is the brand that you are, right? So people would reach out to you because they know you can make a difference. You can represent their case and have it well communicated on the other side of the window, right? So, for example, an infrastructure director may feel that a particular service level metric is not agreeable to them. Now, for that, they would have data. They would need to show why does it not work. Is it because of a tool problem? Is it because of, or is it a person who was unwell? I mean, getting that data, churning it up, and then communicating back, maintaining the transparency across the whole 9 yards is absolutely important. And by doing so, having measurements, I mean, it's all a trust, it's a brand. And by doing it, you're ensuring that, you're set up for something more, or either you're getting something new, or you're the one who they trust for the next big initiative. And you do this not together with the team. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the most powerful ideas you brought up there is, and I think a lot of people, I hope people didn't miss it, is instead of having metrics as a whipping mechanism, you have it as a mechanism for buy-in, for trust, and for increasing the degree to which an initiative is furthered. Not as a essentially, why isn't this done? Is like, how could we make sure something is done because of this measurement, right? And I think that's a really, for me personally, just a really great takeaway. Um, and so, if we dive deeper into sort of how you're sort of pushing these things forward, there's two questions. My first is, what do you consider a good quality process? Um, that really does scale well. What are sort of philosophically, what you're saying? Okay, this is good, right? There's also that people are selling processes these days,
Hmm.
but what do you say? Okay, this is a process that will work either in this either because it's good for this specific situation, or it has the fundamentals of a great process.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so that's a great question again. Um, People are so stuck up with the word of process. I mean, everywhere it's processized foods. I'm just kidding,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
no, but process as such is sometimes overrated. So I know I've heard of places, and what you said is definitely relevant because sometimes people get so lost in the weeds of the process that they just don't achieve the desired result or a task or a milestone. So,
yeah.
at the same time, I'm not canvassing for not to have a process. So,
Mhm,
so to make things right, I want to start with why is a process important? So, what is the need to have a process? Because if you didn't have a process, people go haywire. So a lot of people, and I've seen this in my experience, have a lot of information way up here, right? They've been in organizations for 30 years, 40 years. You ask them, you have it on a piece of paper? No, no, no. I can just tell you. But that's what if the person is not available, or if he's on
sick.
sick, yeah, unplanned
Mm,
leave. And if a new person like you or me have to go and do it, do we know what to do? Do we have a guide? Do we have anything? No, we are lost. So
mm,
I think that's why you need a process, right? And another thing is this process helps in standardization. Now, the way an experienced team member, a new team member, a person from geography X, geography Y do it needs to be consistent. If, of course, their laws and other stuff is conducive, but apparently you should not have 10 people doing 10 different things to achieve something. If that happens, then there's something really messed up with the way things operate. So
mhm,
process for me is where you need to have you need to have some level of standardization. And of course there are metrics that often define and check to measure how compliant is your process, right?
mhm,
So having said that, while following a process cannot be the only factor to make a team successful, it
mhm,
definitely is an important factor, right?
mhm,
And statistics generally indicate teams who follow process are better shaped for success. They definitely do much better. Now coming to the other question of uh, how do you balance the line between proper process tracking and facilitating task completion?
Mm.
I just let you know in the beginning that sometimes people get too lost because the process seems so out of place. Like to complete a 2-day task, they ensure the process is followed and they take like 10 days. So then,
Mm.
it's, I mean, then you make fun of, what is it? Is it the process or the actual task? So
Mm.
my 2 cents on this is, process needs to be an aid to enable task completion. I mean, and if the process is too complex, so much that it compromises timelines and affects other key deliverables,
Mm.
it's time to reconsider the process itself. There's something messed up with the process. So I wouldn't, So a good place to be is when a process is simple. It has minimal steps that leads to a task or a milestone being completed.
Mhm.
If you observe, there is a continuous trend of repeated delays in task completions. That's an indicator. Hey, it's time to evaluate my process because I think it's messed up. And then look at methods of automation. Look at just knock off that irrelevant, what do you say, muda waste or that activity to just go off and make it better. So those are my 2 cents, Ahira.
Would you change a process even if it works just to refresh it? Because if your metric, if your indicator for this process isn't working is delay, but it's almost, for me, I almost have a reflex now, just because of how people are, just to look it over just for its own sake, because you just never know, right?
Yeah. So one thing is I am a strong, firm believer that never do things for the sake of doing things, and always have a
Okay.
continuous improvement mindset. Just because and you triggered my thinking cap there. So you said if things are going good, if it's green, but my process is it doesn't stop you from redesigning that process. So you can still go and challenge it. So maybe your SLA or your metric is 5 days, you're doing it in 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
and you could go ahead, evaluate the process, and say, okay, I can do it in half a day by just changing this process. So that method and model of
Mm-hmm.
continuously innovating, checking, trying should never stop. And if you feel from first hand, oh, something is wrong, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to wait for the author to go ahead and change the document. You can go ahead and just make a difference and say, you know what, I think this could be better if this was done this way. So